The tinkle of her metal tools echoed down the empty cavern. Julia tried not to think of her loneliness. What if some mad shepherd came down here and raped her? In speleology, no one can hear you scream. She smiled inwardly at her own fears. She'd gut the guy with her 6-inch survey peg. Just let him try it. The hour passed. She bent to her task, sorting through the drier dust at the end of the cave, troweling and sifting, troweling and sifting. She brushed and troweled, and paused, feeling her own heart beating. An eye stared back at her. Julia nearly dropped her brush. A distinctive white circlet of bone was visible through the black soil, like a crescent moon on a very dark night. An eye socket in a human skull? Julia squinted closely at the orbital bones and the fine nasal cavity. She felt the pulse of her professional excitement accelerate. An actual human skull. How old was the cranium? Maybe it was some medieval goatherd who fell down the hole after a night of rough wine. Maybe it was the corpse of some 18th century Protestant fleeing the war of the Camisards. But more likely, it was Neolithic. The real thing. The debris of the cave floor was largely Stone Age. They knew that. The other day she had found her tiny fragment of antelope bone pin, dated from 5000 BC. This skull had to be of the same epoch. Julia's hand trembled for a moment with excitement. This was the best find of a desultory season in the cave systems beneath the Champ de Bondon. Hell, this was the best find of her entire and desultory career. She brushed and scraped, then used the most delicate trowel, her precious 4-inch silvery leaf trowel, to wholly disinter the cranium. As she pushed the grit away, she realized there was something odd about this skull. It had a hole high in the forehead. Slipping on her working gloves, Julia lifted the cranium into the white and weakening light of her headlamp. Her batteries were on the fade, but she didn't care. This was too good. The ancient teeth gleamed in the shivering light, white and yellow, and smiling. The hole in the bone was, in itself, no revelation. Julia had seen enough damaged bones to know that splinters and fractures were only to be expected in ancient remains. Homo sapiens, emerging from the Ice Age, had to fight savagely for food and survival, with cave bears and wolverines, with leopards and hyenas. Accidents were also common, from cliff falls and rock falls and hunting wounds. But this hole in the head had been made precisely, carved, sculpted, not intended to be lethal, yet drilled into the bone. She put the cranium on the cave floor and made some notes. Her grimy gloves soiled the white pages as she scribbled. She had discovered, surely, a skull deliberately pierced, or trepanned, in a form of early surgery. This was a Stone Age lobotomy. Someone diligently excising a disc-shaped hole in the high forehead of the cranium. Trepanning was well attested in the literature. It was the earliest form of surgery ever discovered. There were several examples of it in museums dating from the probable age of this skull, 5000 BC. But no one had any proper sense why Stone Age men did it, so this discovery was still quite something. A noise disturbed her excited thoughts. Julia set down her notebook and stared into the murk beyond the faint cone of light cast by her headlamp. The shadows of the cave danced around her. She spoke into the gloom. "Hello?" Silence. "Hello? Ghislaine? Annika?" Silence. "Alex?" The silence was almost absolute. Only the vague whistle of the distant wind up there on the champ answered her question. No one was down here. No one but Julia Kerrigan, 34 years old, single, childless, with her degree from Montreal and her anti-static tweezers. Her and this unnamed human skull. And maybe a rat.